Okay, so this is a really unoriginal thing to say, I know, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's true. But the original 2003 Oldboy is one of my favourite movies of all time. Going into this remake, I did hear about all the bad reviews before I went into this, so I wasn't expecting much, but I was still hoping I would at least find it like entertaining, at least. The thing is, when it comes to remakes, a remake of this sort of film, because for those of you who don't know, the story of Oldboy kind of centers around a mystery, and you know, a lot of the enjoyment of the film comes out of you, the viewer, kind of trying to solve the mystery. And of course, when the answer to the mystery is finally revealed, that's where a lot of the satisfaction comes out of for you as the viewer. So that's a problem when you're kind of remaking a film which centers around the mystery, like Oldboy, because, like, of course, if you've seen the original film, you know the answer to the mystery, so it's kind of ruined for you in that sense. So that's why I think most of the films where they're not very action orientated, where it mainly revolves around some sort of mystery, I think that those sort of remakes are the pointless ones, because they're not. It's not usually very entertaining to watch a bunch of characters kind of solve a mystery for the second time round when you already know the answer to it. Like the Invasion of the Body Snatchers remake, I thought was pretty bad. I mean, that was just pointless. I mean, you know, it's just very samey. Like remakes that I've liked are stuff like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I know that's not a popular opinion, but I like that remake. Like it changed enough from the original film. You know, it's fine. Like, sure, it feels like a generic horror movie. Like, I understand why people hate it, but I find it entertaining. I like the Hills of Eyes remake as well. That was fun. One remake which I really hated was the Funny Games remake. I never thought the original Funny Games was that good to begin with, but the remake for that, it was one of those shot-for-shot remakes, which, you know, why bother? Okay, anyway, let's go back to Oldboy. So, the story of Oldboy, for those of you who don't know, it's basically about a man. He's kidnapped and locked in a hotel room for 15 years straight, and he is suddenly released with no explanation. And basically, he becomes obsessed with trying to find out who was responsible for locking him in the hotel room for 15 years. You know, he's basically trying to find out who could possibly hate him so much they would lock him in a hotel room for 15 years. Because, you know, that'd be a pretty bad thing to endure. It wouldn't be the nicest thing to happen to you. So that's kind of the movie. So the mystery is like you trying to figure out who locked him in the hotel room for 15 years, and more importantly, why they did it. And it's just like the original was a very good movie. It's one of my favorite, like I said. Like the twist at the end was great. The way everything kind of like connected and came together at the end of the movie. You know, it's just a very, very satisfying movie, a very well done movie. One of my favourites, like I said. So going into this remake, if you've seen the original, I guess you've got to kind of ask yourself, are you okay with seeing the same movie again, like Americanized? Like, they change a few things, a few minor things, but for the most part it's the same movie. I mean, but I'll tell you a few minor changes that they've made. Okay, so the character in the original film is called Odesu, and then the character in this film is called Joseph. I just want to get that out of the way. So if I'm saying Odesu, I'm referring to the character in the original, and then Joseph's the guy in the remake. So let's just get that out of the way. Okay, so for starters, Odesu was locked in the hotel room for 15 years. And this time around, Joseph's locked in a hotel room for 20 years. So, you know, it's 5 extra years. Doesn't really make an impact on the film, though. Like, you're still watching the same film, same mystery and everything. But that's like one minor change. The love interest in the original film was like a sushi. She worked at like a sushi restaurant, I think. This time round, she's like some sort of doctor or a nurse or something like that. So she's got a different occupation. I think the biggest change in this movie, as in the remake, is that we get to spend a lot more time with Joseph than we did with Odesu before he gets locked in the hotel room. In the original, you spend about like 5 minutes with Odesu before he gets locked in the hotel room, as opposed to this film where we spend like 10, maybe 15. Actually, I'd say 10. We spend about 10 minutes with Joseph in this film before he gets locked in a hotel room, which is good because, you know, you get a sense of what the character was like before he was driven insane by being locked inside the hotel room, you know. So that's one thing I liked about the remake. I think that's the only like thing about this remake which was better than the original. The fact that you kind of got to know this guy as a person before you got locked in the hotel room. Because the 5 minutes you spent with Odesu in the original, like, he was drunk throughout those 5 minutes anyway, so it's not as if you kind of got to see what he was like as a sober person. What other minor changes are there? There's like the twist is the same. like who locked him in a room and why they did it. Like that sort of stuff's the same. The character kind of goes through the same motions. Like he does the same things to figure out the answer to the mystery. Like this, you know, the plot points they're the same. There's nothing really new or different here. If you want to talk about the gore and the violence for a second, because the original film was quite a violent movie. Okay, so this is pretty watered down compared to the original. Having said that, I do appreciate the movie studio for like just releasing this with an 18 rating, or R if you're in America. There doesn't seem to be much 18 rated movies out there recently. Like the only ones I can really recall off the top of my head would be You're Next. I think Machete Kills was an 18, I can't remember. What is it, The Counselor? I think Don John was, I never saw that. I can't remember, that might have been, I don't know, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of like 18 rated movies out nowadays. I guess movie studios are too scared to release them with an 18 rating because, you know, they don't make as much money. So that's one thing I will say about the movie. I kind of appreciate the movie studio or respect them for releasing it with an 18 rating, so that's one cool thing. But it is watered down compared to the original. Like, what I'm about to say won't mean anything to you if you haven't seen the original, but for those of you who have seen the original, you're going to be like, really? When I tell you this, but you know, in the original, there's a very famous scene involving a pair of scissors. I'm not going to spoil what it is, because it's kind of part of the climax. It's a huge moment, a really famous scene. But you know that really famous moment where a character kind of does something with a pair of scissors? Well, the character does not do anything with these pair of scissors in the remake. Like that mutilation, whatever you want to call it, the injury that the character suffers with a pair of scissors, it's not in this remake. And like, that was a really big moment in the original, and they don't have anything to compensate for it. Like, it's not as if the character does something else instead of, you know, using the pair of scissors to do something. It's just that moment is completely taken out of the movie. And the thing is, if you haven't seen the original, this action with the pair of scissors, it does it, like, it's not gore for the sake of gore. It's like a really big moment. It's like, it's symbolic, it's, you know, all that stuff. Like, it makes sense. It's with very, very, like, you know, with context, really. It's with context, basically. It was like a really impactful moment. Like, it means a lot to the characters and the story. Like, you really have to see the movie to understand where I'm coming from here. But this moment is missing from the remake, which is disappointing. Like, sure, they don't even do anything different. Like, okay, you don't have to do exactly what the original did, but, you know, at least compensate for it. Like, instead of having that moment, they just like don't have that moment. Like, I'm saying you could have compensated and had the character do something else which was similar, but they don't do it. Like, they don't have some sort of replacement, if you know what I'm saying. Let's talk about the teeth torture scene, because in the original, another quite famous scene, basically a certain character gets tortured with a hammer. They basically get their teeth plucked out one by one with like the edge, the claws of a hammer. That, once again, that scene is not in... Well, it's kind of in this... Alright, let me explain. Basically, a character does get tortured, but they don't get tortured by having their teeth ripped out in this movie. Like, it's clearly, like, the same scene, but instead of torturing the character with, you know, getting his teeth ripped out, they torture him a different way. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's not really as intense as the, like, teeth removal stuff. But I was still fine with it. But, like, I guess that's an interesting thing to kind of mention for those of you wondering about the differences between the original and the remake. Like, I was fine with them changing the teeth torture scene. Like, they changed it to something else, which is kind of gruesome, but not as, like, kind of cringy as the original. But I was fine with it. But I just think that's an interesting thing to point out. Yeah, another famous scene, like the hammer fight scene. Like, it's all done in one shot where you... for those of you who haven't seen the original, there's this, like, really lengthy fight scene with a hammer. It goes on for, like, 3 minutes straight, and it's all done in one shot, so, like, on a technical level, it's kind of impressive. The fight choreography kind of gets a bit messy and a bit, like, noticeably messy towards the end of it, but you can kind of forgive it and still appreciate the scene for what it is, because, I mean, it's a 3 minute long fight scene all done in one take, like, one shot. So, even though the fight choreography gets messy towards the end, and you can really tell it is getting messy, you can still kind of appreciate it for what they were trying. So, that scene is still really entertaining and impressive in its own right. They try to do when that fight scene is in this remake, and they do like a similar thing. It's not as long as the original, but it's like, I don't know, 90 seconds long in this one. But you know, it's fine. It's okay. It's not as good as the original, but it's still fine. I still liked it. It's just like, yeah, I was entertained by that fight scene. Some people get bashed in the head with a hammer like they did in the original. The gore effects are okay. They're kind of cartoony, but I don't know. The gore effects were fine. I think my biggest problem with this movie is that it feels rushed. Just that's it. It feels like really, really rushed. The runtime for this movie is 104 minutes as opposed to the 120-minute runtime of the original. I am aware that Spike Lee's original cut of this film was 140 minutes long. So what's that, I'm just going to do some rough maths here. That's like almost half an hour cut out, or just over half an hour cut out. So maybe the film would be a lot better. Like, maybe his version of the film is a lot better. Hopefully he gets to release some sort of director's cut on DVD and Blu-ray. I'll definitely check that out if he gets a chance to release his director's cut. But as the movie stands as it is, like, the version of the movie I saw felt rushed as hell. So maybe his version of the movie is superior. I don't know. I haven't seen it, obviously. But as the movie stands as it is with this cut, it feels very rushed. Like, that's really what I have to say. It just feels really rushed. For example, like, it feels as if they're like I'm using the word rushed a lot, but that's really the only word I can really think of to use to describe it. Like, for example, for those of you who haven't seen the film, the character of Joseph, he's left a phone when he's released from the hotel room, and basically the guy who is responsible for like his punishment rings him throughout the course of the movie several times. It's the same with the original. Odesu was given a phone as well, and he gets like the guy who is responsible for locking him in the room rings him up every now and again. So when Odesu first gets a phone call from the guy, like, he's nervous. He's really nervous and really on edge. And when he first answers the phone, like, he snatches the phone and puts it to his ear. Then he's kind of just sitting there for like, I don't know, 20 seconds, no, well, not, 15 seconds straight in silence, just sitting there with the phone to his ear, and eventually he kind of says hello, and he's like really like nervous and on edge, which is understandable. I mean, this is the guy who is responsible for locking you in a room for 15 years. Like, that would be a pretty shitty thing to happen to you. I mean, 15 years of your life gone like that. You never saw another human being for 15 years of your life. And you're stuck in this one hotel room. I mean, I don't think I have to describe how bad that would be, obviously. So, he's really nervous. He's kind of like really freaked out. He's obviously, curious who is responsible for his torture. But the thing is, like, when I say the film feels rushed compared to the original, for example, in this remake, when the guy first gets a phone call, Joseph, when he first gets a phone call, he picks the phone up, but he does it like really casually. Like, it's like he answers the phone and he's immediately like, hey, who are you? Like, he doesn't seem like he really cares. It feels like they're rushing it. Like, they just want to get to the next scene as soon as possible. Yeah, like, every single scene felt like that, especially the climax. The climax of this just was god awful. I mean, the first half of the movie, I was kind of into it. I was entertained. Like, it was obviously inferior to the original, as you would expect. The first half of the movie, well, the whole entire movie is, but when I was watching the first half of the movie, even though it was inferior to the original, I was still okay with watching it, because essentially what you are doing is watching the same movie, like the same movie, just Americanized. You're watching the original movie like in an American setting, just inferior in like every aspect. But even then, even though it was like inferior in every aspect, I was still moderately entertained by it. Like, I was okay with watching this character solve the mystery I've already seen solved again, because Oldboy has quite a few action scenes, so like the action scenes and stuff like that, they were fun to watch, even though like it's a remake and I know where everything's going. So I was still okay with the first half of the movie. Like, I was moderately entertained, like I was saying. But the second half of the movie, that's when I started like zoning out every now and again. The second half of the movie was where it was kind of getting boring. It started to bore me quite a bit. Like, I was okay with the first half, but by the time we got to the second half, I was kind of like, okay, okay, come on, let's go. I've already seen all this, I know where it's going. I was starting to get a bit bored. I think that's because the second half of both movies doesn't have much action compared to the original, compared to the first half. Like, both in the original and the remake, the first half of the movie is like action-packed, then the second half of the movie doesn't have anywhere near as much as action. Like, the second half of both movies kind of focuses a lot more on him trying to solve the mystery, which mostly consists of the character doing like detective work and like, just talking to people and trying to solve the mystery. So the second half of the movie isn't as interesting to watch because, it's the remake. I already know where everything's going. And like I already said, it's inferior to the original in every way because it feels rushed and everything. So it's just not as entertaining to watch. So that's kind of how I felt about the movie. But the ending, the climax of the movie was like terribly handled. It was handled so poorly in this one. Like, the fact that they are rushing this movie, or at least it feels rushed, really becomes apparent in the climax of this movie. Because, like, you know, the climax of the original Oldboy is, like, amazing. Like, the way, like, the twist and everything comes together. Like, it's a really mesmerizing climax, in my opinion. Like, you know, most people think this anyway. So when we come to the remake, I feel like it's insulting that they rushed the climax as much as they did. So first time viewers won't really have like much of they won't really have much of a time to like really. Like, they don't give you enough time to, like, process the information they are giving to you. Like, as you find out the answers to the mystery and when you find out what the twist is, because they are rushing it so much, or at least it feels rushed, you, as, like, the viewer, don't really get time to, like, absorb the information and, like, appreciate the twist. Because the scene is moving along so quickly and it feels so rushed, if you know what I'm saying. So that's why, like, the climax kind of felt so poor to me as well. Because, like, in the original, things were moving very slowly during the climax, and like you weren't getting bored though, because like you were genuinely interested in the mystery. And that's the thing with the original Lena, because like the mystery was genuinely interesting. You genuinely wanted to know the answer to the mystery as much as the character did. Of course, this is a remake, so like I said, you already know the answer to the mystery, so it kind of ruins the impact if you've seen the original movie. The cinematography is another thing that really bothered me. Like, everything is shot like fine, like it's shot fine, like as long as you, like, you know, the shots are framed well enough so you can tell what is happening. Like, as long as you as the viewer can tell what is happening, who cares, you know? That's the only thing that really matters. But the thing is, like, if this was any other movie, I would be okay. I would be like, the directing's fine, the way it's shot is okay. But the fact that this is a remake of Oldboy is why I'm kind of bothered by the cinematography, because the original 2003 Oldboy is a really, like, beautiful looking film. It's shot very well, it looks very nice, it's a very pretty looking film. So when you're doing a remake of a film which looks so nice, it really kind of stuck out to me. I don't know if this is going to affect anyone else, but because the original was shot so nice, like, I had some really daring, like, eccentric, really pretty looking shots. So when you're doing a remake of a film which had such nice looking cinematography, it really kind of stood out to me when I was watching this remake of how, like, plain, dull and boring, like, it was shot here in the remake. So that really bugged me. There's this really awkward scene with Samuel Jackson. Basically, he answers a phone. He answers the phone, and they're doing that movie thing where the character's talking to someone on a phone, but like you are not hearing, like, you know, the conversation. You're not hearing the other side of the conversation. I've got to sort something out. Okay, so as I was saying, I had to sort my cat out. But so Samuel Jackson answers the phone, and they're doing that movie thing you see a lot where, like, the character's talking to someone on the phone, but you're not, like, listening the other, like, half of the conversation. Like, you're hearing Samuel Jackson speaking, but the person he's speaking to, you're not hearing their voice. You know that thing? So, like, Samuel Jackson is kind of, like, speaking, but he's kind of repeating what the guy on the phone is saying to him. So, like, we, as the audience, can kind of follow along with the conversation, if you know what I'm saying. So, and it just feels really unnatural and, like, really awkward because of the way Samuel Jackson is, like, repeating what the guy on the other side of the phone is saying. So it feels really unnatural and awkward with the way he's repeating it. Like when you're sitting there watching it, like, you as the viewer, you can, like, so easily tell. Like, it really, like, you really notice that they're trying to write the script in a way where you will understand what you know, what the other guy's saying. So that scene just felt really unnatural and awkward to me. I didn't like watching that scene. Was kind of cringy. Anything else to say? Okay, so the other thing I have to say is the villain of the movie. That's one thing I have to talk about here. The villain of the original was very menacing. Like, he was played very straight. Like, he was very menacing, you know, like, the mystery, like, it's a really dark movie, so it works. In this time round, they have the villain they kind of play it like the villain's really campy, I guess is the word to use. Like, I'm not sure, it's not quite, they don't quite play him for laughs or comedic relief, but they're kind of playing him really campy, so it's kind of difficult to take him seriously. And which is kind of bad because, you know, the mystery is a genuinely interesting mystery. So for first-time viewers who haven't seen the original, like, they should be getting into this mystery and trying to work out the answer to it. But, like, when you have a villain like this who's, like, really campy and just, like, making a joke out of everything, it's kind of difficult. I would imagine it'd be difficult for first-time viewers to take the mystery seriously, which is something you should be taken seriously because, you know, the payoff is worth it. Like, you know, it's a mystery worth following along, basically, because the payoff is so good. Yeah, so I didn't like the villain in this one. Like, not that the guy who played him did a bad job or anything. He did an okay job, but it's just, I just don't like that he kind of played him as a really campy, like, played him like campy. Like, I just didn't like that. Josh Brolin, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. The guy who plays Joseph, the main character. Josh Brolin, however you pronounce his name. He's fine. Like all the acting's fine throughout the movie, but doing the twist when the twist is revealed, I don't think he did a good job at acting there. Like I didn't laugh out loud, but he kind of I don't know. I don't think he did a good job there. I was kind of cringing a little bit when he doing his performance there. I didn't like. Yeah, I didn't like his performance doing the twist. It is a bit cringy to watch. One big thing, well, this isn't that big. They kind of changed the ending. I guess this is worth mentioning. Everything after the climax of the movie is different after the climax. So the climax is the same, the famous climax. That's the same, but everything after the climax is different. So the fate of a certain main character is different, which I appreciate. I like that. So... Like, I still prefer the ending to the original, but I do like that they did change the ending to this one. Like, it was interesting. It was an interesting spin on things here. So they do change the ending, everything after the climax at least. So the fate of a certain main character is different, which I thought was interesting. Like, I still prefer the original ending, like I said. But this was, you know, I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's cool. Deputy So-and-so from Sinister is in this movie. That's really what I have to say. I was just kind of glad to see him in here. For those of you who don't know, Deputy So-and-so was a character in Sinister, which I like that character. Like so I inadvertently liked the actor. So when I saw him he popped up in this movie at some point, and I was like I was thinking, oh, I know him from, what have I seen him from? And eventually, like halfway through the movie, I realised he's from Sinister. So I just thought it was cool to see him, just the actor here. So that was kind of cool, just to see him. So that's one more good thing about the movie, I guess. There's one other minor thing they changed, which I guess I should mention. The villain's motivation, it's kind of the same, but kind of not. It's kind of difficult to say without giving spoilers, but the villain's motivation for why he locked Joseph in the room for 20 years, it's slightly different to the original. Like, it's the same theme. It's the same theme. Like I can't really talk about this without giving spoilers. It's slightly different. It's kind of it's the same but kind of different. They put like a different spin on it, but it doesn't really change the movie or like, you know, make the movie worth watching just to see what they changed. It's just a really minor thing. So should you go and see it? Well, if you haven't seen the original, just go watch the original. Like if you're one of those people who like can't watch movies with subtitles, if one of those people who don't like foreign movies, just put that aside for 1 second and watch the original. It's one of the best movies ever made, in my opinion, and most people seem to agree. Just watch it. It's a very good movie. I find it insulting to think somebody would watch this remake before watching the original. Like that would piss me off if I knew someone that did that. So if you haven't seen this remake, I would say don't bother. Just watch the original. If you have seen the original and you're wondering whether or not it's worth seeing the remake, I don't know. It just comes down to your own personal like tolerance, I guess. Like for those of you who have seen the original, do you think you could handle watching an inferior version of the movie, which is practically the same? Like if the answer is yes, then go see it, because that was my answer. Like I went into this movie kind of like, you know, I want to see Oldboy Americanized. I'm interested in seeing how they do it. That's what I did. That's what I got. Like, it was inferior to the original as expected, but the first half of the movie was slightly entertaining, which is, I'm kind of glad. Like, the second half of the movie, like I said, bored me in parts, but overall, I was like, oh, okay. It was kind of bad, but the first half of the movie entertained me. Like, I don't know, I was okay. Like, I went into this movie expecting an inferior version of the original. That's what I got. I'm not disappointed. I got what I wanted. That's really all I have to say. You know, that's basically all I have to say. If you've seen the original and you're wondering whether or not you should see this, basically just ask yourself, are you okay? Do you think you would be entertained by watching the same movie? A slightly inferior version of the same movie. That's all I have to say. I'm going to talk about trailers rather quickly here, so if you care what I have to say about some of the movies which are coming up, then you can stick around. If not, just shut off the video, because I'm done with talking about the movie. Okay, so... what trailers? I got this one horror movie, The Quiet Ones, it's called. I think it's found footage. I can't quite remember. From what I saw this movie like 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago. It's quite a while back, so I can't remember much about this trailer. I think it looked like a haunted house movie, like with it was done with a found footage, I think. I can't remember. It might have been. I don't know. I watched it a while back. It looks. It just looks like really generic. Like I'll probably watch it just because like I'm trying to watch every single movie ever made. So I'll probably just watch it for the sake of it when it does come out. But it doesn't look good. It looks more along the lines of like The Possession or The Apparition or The Haunting in Connecticut. In my opinion, those three movies were like just shit. Like as soon as you see the poster or the trailer for those movies, you know they're gonna be bad. Like you know that there's no way these movies can be good. And you like the only reason you would watch these movies because you want to see some shitty generic horror movie. I went into those movies expecting a really shitty generic horror movie. That's what I got. I think The Quiet Ones looks the same. Like I'll go into it with an open mind, but I'm not expecting much. I haven't got my hopes up for that. It looks like a really generic haunted house movie. Another one I got, American Hustle. I don't know. That looks okay. Like the trailer didn't really say much about the plot. Or I was trying to follow along with what they were saying about the plot in the trailer, but I was kind of getting confused, so I was like, oh, whatever. I didn't bother trying to pay attention to the trailer much because it just kind of confused me. I'm not sure if the trailer was presenting information about the plot in a like I can't say that word, but in an I'm not sure if the trailer was like giving us information about the plot in a manner which was understandable. So I'm not sure if you're supposed to understand what that movie is about from seeing the trailer. Like I can really tell. Only thing I kind of got from it was it's some sort of like movie about some sort of scam artists, some hustlers, starring Christian Bale. I think Bradley Cooper was in it, I can't remember, and then Jennifer Lawrence. That's really all I got out of it. I'm sure it looks like an okay movie though. Okay, here's a story for you. When I was just sitting there watching the trailer. Okay, so the trailer started for this other movie. It was a horror movie, a found footage horror movie, shall I say. So the trailer started, it was going on, and very quickly it became apparent to me that this was a found footage movie. And it just looked like, it looked so similar to Paranormal Activity. I was like, really? Really? Like, we've got plenty, like, I don't know. I'm just kind of fed up of all these, like, Paranormal Activity knockoffs. Like, for those of you who don't know, I hate Paranormal Activity. I think it's a terrible series. It has its fans, I know. If you like the movies, good for you, but I'm not a fan. I hate them. Hate them so much. They're one of those movie series just kind of makes me really angry when I watch them, It's kind of like Final Destination. That's another movie series that just makes me angry when I watch it. Yeah, so I was watching this, I was just like, oh really, this looks so similar to Paranormal Activity. Like, how many more knockoffs can we get? So the movie was going on. It looked very similar to Paranormal Activity. It's a found footage movie. I was just like, oh god, and it did look bad. Like this movie looked god awful. Oh my god, like you have no idea if you haven't seen the trailer. Well, trust me, it looks terrible. And then the title card came up for the movie, and guess what the title was? Paranormal Activity: The Marked Ones. And I should have known, like, I was like, yeah, okay, I should have seen that coming. Because I was aware of the existence of Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones. Like, I heard that they announced it. I heard that they released the trailer for it. I never bothered to watch the trailer, so that's why I was surprised when, the title card came up. I was like, yeah, this movie seems very similar to Paranormal Activity, kind of because it is. I really should have seen that coming. But yeah, it looks terrible. One thing I will say about it though, like with the previous Paranormal Activity movies, I don't like them, like I've already said. I just find them really boring as well, that's the thing. So even though they're really bad, I can't even get any entertainment value out of them because they're just so boring to watch. Like it's not like the Wicker Man remake with Nicolas Cage where that's just like immensely entertaining because of how shit it is. But that's the thing with the first 4 Paranormal Activity movies at least. I hate them and I don't find them entertaining either. Like, the only entertaining part of any of those movies would be the ending to Paranormal Activity 3, like the final 10 minutes where, it's going crazy in the house. That was the only entertaining part of the whole entire series. Well, this one looks fun though, I will give it that. This one looks a bit more action orientated. This one looks a bit more fun, so I'm obviously going to see it for the sake of it. Like, I just try to watch every single movie for the sake of it. So I will be checking this out, of course, but I will say, although it looks terrible, it does look fun, because it's a bit more action-orientated. So I don't know, maybe I'll get some entertainment out of this one. I have heard positive reviews about this one. Apparently it's been getting a lot of positive reviews from the pre-screenings, but I don't know, I don't really trust the pre-screenings. Yeah, I'll see, I'll give it a chance. I haven't got high hopes for it, but apparently it's been getting positive reviews, so we'll see about that, That's all I have to say. Yeah, that's all I have to say. So, yeah, that's all I got. See ya.